All right, Don says, am I correct then in assuming that discipline of the personality, knowledge of self, and control, shall I say, in strengthening of the will, would be what any fifth density entity would see as those things of importance? Any fifth density entity. Yes, okay. So Rod's going to correct something which obvious at this point with the word control. I think they'll say it, yes. In actuality, Rod says, these things are of importance in third through early seven densities. See, this one phrase is beautiful. You can spend a whole hour here. But let's keep reading. Ron says the only correction in nuance that we would make is your use of the word control. It is paramount that it be understood that it is not desirable or helpful to the growth of the understanding, may we say, of an entity by itself to control thought processes or impulses, except where they may result in actions not consonant with the law of one. Okay, so Don's question is about early fifth density or just fifth density in general. Strengthening of the will would be what any fifth density would see as those things of importance. Basically, the important things to develop discipline of personality would be, one of the most important things would be the strengthening of the will. And this particular point, like Ross said, is important in any density from third to early seven. You see, third, why not first or second? Because there is no awareness of self. It is still the creator. It is still the essence of the creator moving in exquisite patterns of evolution through matter to animals and plants, and finally to self-conscious. See, everything is conscious, but it's not self-conscious, which means it cannot reflect its consciousness into itself. The way you can check this is ask your dog, are you aware? And they will not understand the question. Okay? They will not be able to tell you, yeah, I am. You say this to another human, and they'll say, well, obviously. That's so obvious to us. That is the key. Are you aware? So, in self-awareness, the strengthening of the will is important. You are self-aware, obviously, from third density all the way to early seventh density. Because in mid-seventh density, you start just melting with oneness. And you are not self-aware anymore, but simply awareness. That's it. You can, if you want to do this exercise, because you're thinking like, oh, come on, Gabe, that's like in seventh density. I'm only this human here, poor human. Well, do this the following. You want to feel seventh density consciousness? Stop thinking. Actually, that's always a terrible advice. Observe your thoughts and realize that there is a watcher, a seer, a seeing, that knowing that you are. That is the base of everything. If you can just rest in that knowing, that is what's called God's peace, harmony, eternal love, whatever. All of that is what you are. That is consciousness. You are consciousness. So that is seventh density. You are not aware of anything. You're not aware of yourself. You are awareness. So you can see that in seventh. You see how I can just take this, through an hour, but I don't have to. Again, Ra corrects and says the only correction nuance is that don't use the word control, because control seems to elicit that idea that we need to control our thoughts, control our impulses, and so on. But they say only when they may not be consonant with the law of one. But obviously, if you have an urge to slap your boss for some reason, well, that may not be consonant. I'm not saying don't do it. A lot of people have done it. It might, get you what you want faster without you even knowing it. But again, no, I'm not. I'm not provoking anything. See, I'm losing polarization here. Come on. So that's the point. It's just, don't use your impulses. You control yourself, or you're just gonna hurt yourself. This can get taken way out of context. Control yourself. But no, they're saying, in terms of the developing of these disciplines of personality, don't control yourself. Be. That's why I'm gonna call it, in Buddhism, just to generalize it. In Buddhism, they just tell you, don't repress anything. Just be. Just be who you are. That's why they have the precepts, of course, where you're not supposed to have to kill, to abuse your passion, to steal, to use wrong speech, and so on, because that's non-consonant with the law of one. Basically, if you read the precepts, you say like, oh, okay, these are non-consonant. Anything else you can do, just go do it, explore it, do it. Why are you repressing yourself? Don't repress yourself unless it's not consonant with the law of one, which again, you have it embedded in your mind. You know this since childhood. So Ra will elaborate a little bit more on control when they say control may seem to be a shortcut to discipline, peace, and illumination. However, this very control potentiates and necessitates the further incarnative experience in order to balance this control or repression of that self which is perfect. So basically, karma. That's right there in a nutshell. You create more karma. You need to express this repression. There's not much to say here, so I'll just go to the next part. What Ra says: instead, we appreciate and recommend the use of your second verb in regard to the use of will, acceptance of self, forgiveness of self, and the direction of the will. This is the path towards the disciplined personality. Your faculty of will is that which is powerful within you as co-creator. You cannot ascribe to this faculty too much importance. Thus, it must be carefully used and directed in service to others for those upon the positively oriented path. So these are the verbs: acceptance, forgiveness, or forgiving, and the direction of the will. You see, acceptance of self is actually liberation of the perceived self. Does that make sense? Liberation of the ego is acceptance of self, because the ego is always concerned with, lack of something. So when you no longer feel lack of anything, you're accepting what is, not even yourself, accepting what is. Forgiveness is, again, to me, it's just another way of saying accepting. But you see, it's the process. I would say forgiveness is the process of accepting. See, once you accept something, that process is saying, well, this, what I am is what I've always been. And there is no, use an example. What you consider to be yourself through the egoic mind, which identifies with thoughts, moments, events, and so on. When you consider to be that, you were judging yourself into that, the chain of events that you were, the chain of personalities, of beings. I was a bad husband, I was a terrible son, I was an unworthy employee, whatever. Just fill it up with any thoughts you may have of yourself. All of those things, even the happy ones. Oh, I'm excellent, I'm superior, I'm great, all this stuff. I am the universe. Sorry, sometimes it gets there. So with these in mind, you accept the fact that liberation, right? That liberation of that automatically makes you realize that the judging of that was in vain, that the judging was actually non-existent. It was just a process too. And so that is forgiveness of the self, forgiveness of that which goes. You are no longer affected by this. And now the direction of the will The direction of the will is, well, what do you want to do? What is it? What is it that you want to do? So they say this is the path towards a disciplined personality. The discipline means, in this context, and I'll probably repeat this for a long time. You see, we hear the word discipline and we're like, oh, I have to be disciplined. I have to do things and I have to consistently do it. Well, you're very disciplined in being yourself. That is who you are. You see, you've never stopped being who you are. I'm not talking about the ego, whatever ideas you have of yourself, identity, labels, and all that stuff which abounds our reality right now, because we're so full of labels that you can put on yourself. And so I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about who you are. You've always been you. Is there a point where you can say, well, I wasn't that wasn't me? Again, there are ways you can use that through the ego, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you being you. So that disciplined personality is just being that. Discipline is, for example, somebody who's very disciplined at playing music. It's not because he has to. It's because he loves doing it. So he develops a discipline. Discipline used to be a synonym for, your, not your career, but, what you do. What disciplines do you practice? That's the type of discipline we're talking about here. So the disciplined personality, which is, again, and the word personality doesn't, I'll give him a break. Language is language, man. So personality is just who you are. What flows through you, the Tao that's flowing through you. Your faculty of will is that which is powerful within you as co-creator. Yes, it is. Your faculty of will is that which makes you the co-creator, actually, I would say. You cannot ascribe to this faculty too much importance. Well, of course, that is the center. That is the current of the river. See, a river is not a river because it has water. That could be a lake, it could be the ocean. A river is a river because it has flow. It has that flow, which is not, how can you measure it? You cannot measure it. You can't point it at it. It's a flow. It simply goes. That is your faculty of will. It's ever present. So you cannot ascribe too much importance to this. It is what it is. It's the more you are into this, the more you feel it, as opposed to seeing it from a third or an external view, and looking at yourself as somebody. Ego. Thought it must be carefully used and directed in service to others for those upon the positively oriented path. Of course, yes. Once you know that this flow is the flow, you naturally, you don't have to, but if you're positively oriented, then you probably should, and what is that? Well, you already know what service to others is. So, we have more from Ra. This is the last part for today. Ra says, there is great danger in the use of the will as the personality becomes stronger, for it may be used even subconsciously in ways reducing the polarity of the entity. Sure thing. You see, we can get an example here from not too far from what we talk about. The fifth density, who is developing the disciplines of personality for travel, or for itself, but for travel as well. They're using the disciplines of personality as you become, as you evolve. They're using it for the wrong means, or at least, not for those means that are going to bring them into unity, right? But they're still using it for evolution, so even that's not proper to say. In any case, what Ra's saying is here that there is great danger in using the will of the personality. I'll reread it. There is great danger in the use of the will as the personality becomes stronger, for it may be used even subconsciously in ways reducing the polarity of the entity. What can be said here? There are always ways in which we can... I think a good example of this even though it's probably not tied into this lesson, shall we say, that Ra gives us. When there is the knowledge that we are spiritual beings, and I certainly went through this as somebody who had no idea what spirit was, and I was like, wow, I'm a spiritual being. The ego goes right into it and says, yeah, man, we just discovered we're a spiritual being. And it's funny, that's just how it happens. So there is danger in using this, as the will of the personality becomes stronger, knowing the self, there is danger, subconscious ways of reducing the polarity of the entity, because now, as I'm a spiritual person, I may feel superior to others who are not. And we just look at them and say, well, poor peasants, poor sheeple, they don't know anything. They're just ignorant cattle. But then, some of them are going to want to talk to me, and so I'm going to be their guru. You see how you reduce your polarity there? Because you're using negative polarization. So the more you know yourself, the more there is, danger for you to subconsciously use this in ways of reducing your polarity. So the only thing I can say here is that your guiding star, your North Pole, should be always unity. If you're not seeing the unity and equality in some degree, it's not that you're wrong, it's that you have further exploration to say, wow, there's more I can see here, and I can expand this bliss of looking at others and saying, wowee, this is it. See, and you have that possibility of expanding yourself.